just so that we're going to start this meeting, we have two committees with a quorum. F&B is looking for two more people, then we'll have a quorum, and Public Works needs two, and all right, we have Peter, so we need one. So here's, just so that everybody knows what can happen. If Public Works does not have a quorum, they're still going to participate in this meeting. You just can't vote. The other positive side of that is if Public Works does not have a quorum, you don't need to publish minutes. It's a good with a bad. We're going to start, if nobody minds, we're going to start with the easements. The way we have to do this, even though we've had two different opinions on this, is each one of the easements has to be nominated, thank you, Stacy, separately and seconded, and then we can vote on them as a total block. But each one does have to be moved and seconded, and then we can do a single vote.
Within each committee?
Yeah. So that's a lot of, that's 28 in total.
Okay.
All right, so we're going to hand it over to Jeremy and Ed, who can present to us on the easements.
Good evening, everybody. Channel 79, thank you. Ed and I are here to tell you a little bit about the project. We'll spend 5 minutes telling you about the grant and why we're here and how we came to this place. So first of all, the grant we received was through the Western Connecticut Council of Governments. It's called a Local Transportation Capital Improvement Program Grant, LOTCIP for short. And under such grants, the town of Darien would pay for the design costs, the engineering, traffic counts, etc., and the grant will pay for the actual right-of-way and construction costs. So the total project is in the range of about $1 million, so it's certainly worth our while to proceed with this grant. Ed and I have worked closely to hire a traffic consultant, professional engineer to design the project, obtained required easements on 7 properties near the Norotan Avenue, West Avenue intersection, and we've worked closely with these property owners. There's 7 different property owners. We've had numerous meetings with each to describe the project, explain to them the benefits, what we're doing on each person's property, and in the meantime, we've also closely coordinated with the state DOT because ultimately they have to approve the project. They have approved the concept, and we'll talk a little bit about how far along are we in that. So we've been working on this for about 2.5 years. You know, we originally got on the grant list even beyond that, so this has been going on for quite a while. And what you see before you tonight are what are called the 90% construction plans, meaning these things are very nearly done. We're just doing some fine tuning, but they're not likely to change much from what you see here, if at all. So the mapping of the easements is very detailed and has been finalized for each property. We've brought in a licensed appraiser to estimate what one can call the damages to each property, both for what we're calling temporary easements, where the town is just working on someone's property just for a little while and then moving off the property, and then also permanent easements, where in a case of moving a sidewalk a little further off the roadway, there'll need to be a permanent easement on that person's property. After the appraiser came in, we sat down with the property owners, and all of them have agreed to a reimbursement amount, which is good, because that certainly was the first step. So at this point, we are in the process of having the property owners come in and sign the easement documents, and I'll circle back to that in a few minutes. But first, we're going to give you a little more detail about the intersection improvements. So as you can imagine, I'm sure you've all driven through the Norotan Avenue, West Avenue intersection. You have the 2 gas stations on the southern corners, what used to be Fitness Together on the northwest corner, and then the northeast corner is the corner of what used to be Allen O'Neill Homes, which is now the Heights at Darien. These are basically 2 collector roads, Norotan Avenue, West Avenue, which run through town. So it's long queuing, long amount, especially during certain hours when the trains are coming or going, and during school hours. So we have to find a way to get more people through that intersection in a more efficient manner. We also, as part of this project, will be putting in new sidewalks, ADA compliant, with tactile handicap ramps, new crosswalk signs. So let's start with the maps here. The map to my left here, which is IND01, shows, and that's going to point to going northbound. As you come up Norotan Avenue, there will soon be a left turn lane, which would allow people who are turning left to go into Stamford an opportunity to get into that left turn lane and reduce the backups, which go sometimes down to Heights Road. Going westbound from West Avenue, going to Stamford, there would also be a left turn lane allowing people to turn south onto Norotan Avenue. Again, that will reduce the amount of queuing on West Avenue. Our traffic consultant did look at other left turn lanes, but after analysis, it was determined that these 2 left turn lanes, which we're installing as part of this project, should be sufficient to address much of the queuing in that area. So you'll see much improvement, especially with new lights and left turn lights and things like that. Also, as part of this project, which you've all seen, it's going to widen the curbs a little more and move the stop bars back, which will allow trucks who are going through that intersection, and there's lots of trucks that go through, the easier ability to make turns without stopping and waiting for someone who's waiting. I see a lot of nodding heads, waiting for someone to back up their car so they can make the turn. So we're going to try to fix that problem while we're at it. So to do this widening work, to create room for these left turn lanes and widen the roadway, we're going to have to push everything out a little more pavement, and push the sidewalks, which are now around the intersection, push them out a little bit. So as I mentioned earlier, 7 property owners are affected. And what we're doing is taking easements. We're not taking anyone's property, but just easements, which will allow us to use the property either on a temporary or permanent basis. So the amount of land owned by each property owner will not change. They'll still own it, but there'll be an easement on it, which will be filed in the land records. And since these easements are an interest in land which the town is acquiring, Attorney Wayne Fox said, right, this requires review and action by the Board of Selectmen and full RTM because the town is acquiring rights to land. So let me give you the time frame from here, the next steps, where we go from here. The Board of Selectmen approved the easements at their meeting on Monday, February 24th. And the next step after this meeting will be the full RTM on Monday, March 16th. In the meantime, we're working with property owners to have the easement documents signed. And once the plans are good to go, documents signed, we send everything up to the state DOT for their final review. Now, hopefully will take a month or 2 only, but who knows? And once it gets approved by DOT, we then file all the paperwork in the Darien land records. We put the project out to bid. And once DOT approves the contractor, the town will then receive the full amount of the grant and then be able to get started with this project. We will then reimburse the property owners, and our hope is to get started right after school ends in June of this year. That's all goes well. It's 4 to 6 month project, I believe. So hopefully we'll be done October, November if things go well later this year. Now, just to let you all know, we subsequent to this will be coming back before you in April for approval to actually appropriate and spend the grant money. But tonight we're just going to focus on the easements, get this project underway, get everything up to DOT, and circle back with you next month. Yes, Jack?
Jeremy, the easements that we will be paying approximately $66,000.
Jack, can you go to a microphone, please?
Usually my voice.
Yeah, but it doesn't work for TV 79.
To TV 79.
Jeremy, can you just comment, the $66,000 on the financial aspects of the easement, I believe you said that that will be actually paid for within the grant.
That's correct. The total amount that we're paying to the 7 property owners for these easements is in the range of $64,000 to $66,000, something like that. And that is, as part of this grant, money that DOT will reimburse us. They reimburse us, as I said, for right-of-way acquisition and construction costs. So the town is, the only out-of-pocket money for the town would be the appraiser, the traffic engineer. No one appraiser. Oh, well, that's great. I didn't know that. So Ed, for those watching at home, Ed tells me that the appraiser would likely be covered with DOT money as well. So that's good. Yes?
Chairman, just sticking on the financial aspects, just curious, it's not a lot of money, but how did we come up with $64,000?
Well, it's a good question. We had an appraiser come in to look at each of the properties. So he did an individual report on each of the 7 properties, and it's based on sales, recent sales. So some of these are residential properties, some are commercial properties, for example, the 2 gas stations, and then there was also the Heights of Darien. So we had to look at recent sales, what land value is per square foot in each of those zoning districts for those types of uses, and then look at whether it's a permanent easement, which has a different value than a temporary easement. So the whole analysis done for each of the 7 properties. And the reimbursements, I think, Ed, stop me if I'm wrong, range from about, the lowest was $1,000, the most might have been $21,000. So somewhere in that range for a slice of property that you will either have a permanent or temporary easement on. So it was a professionally done report for each of the 7 properties.
I'm sorry, I'm sort of leading questions that I want you to mention. One of the things that you mentioned at the Board of Selectmen is the 824 report that has to be prepared to ensure that this is consistent with the town plan. My understanding is the intention is to bring it to the P&Z Commission on, I believe they're meeting on the 10th.
Tuesday the 10th.
And so the one thing that we weren't able to discuss on the side, I know that you and Ed have done yeoman's work on bringing this to fruition. I am assuming, which we shouldn't do, but this is consistent with the town plan?
Now, that is my belief. Kate Bush, town administrator, did request a report from the Planning and Zoning Commission. With her request came various pages from the 2016 Town Plan of Conservation and Development in support of the proposal. Various things in the town plan that says, you know, look for situations to relieve traffic congestion, et cetera. So Planning and Zoning meets on the 10th. It's highly likely they will issue their report on the 10th, which would allow the RTM, when you meet on Monday the 16th, to have that report in hand.
And you also mentioned, providing it's consistent with the town plan, the RTM would only need a 50% vote. If it was determined not to be consistent, which is highly unlikely, we would need a 2/3 vote. Is that correct?
That's correct. The state statutes provide that. So the Planning and Zoning Commission is going to look at it from the perspective, the report required by the state of Connecticut has the commission look at purchasing property, leasing property. It also looks at widening of roads. So that's the angle the commission's going to take a look at. Here, the RTM's got a different look, but it's basically the same project, which is the RTM's looking at the easements and the acquisition of rights for the town of Darien.
My name is Rolf Hoban, District 4. When you made the presentation to Jamie Stevenson, the Board of Selectmen, she had mentioned that there were certain considerations that were made regarding this intersection that were in the interest of safety. And of course, you know that this intersection has some heightened awareness, particularly since the roadway leads to the school and the children that use the sidewalk. So because when she said that, she didn't go into any details. So I'm wondering if you can expound a little bit on what safety features, in fact, have been incorporated in the plan.
Do you want to cover this, Ed?
We did meet at the Board of Selectmen's last meeting. We went over some safety features beforehand just to kind of broaden up on it. But Jamie did mention it. And what we are doing with this intersection is, you want to call it traffic signal and pedestrian upgrades, if you will. There are handicap ramps, there are some crosswalks, there are some signals there. But being a state DOT funded project, federally funded project, we are required to meet all the ADA compliance and all PRO-AG compliance issues. So there'll be traffic signals with the hands and the countdown buttons. There'll be audio at every single corner also. There'll be newer and wider handicap ramps with the tactile warning strips. So these are all safety features that are mentioned as part of ADA compliance. They will all now be instituted at this intersection at this time.
Okay. Will there be, the button for the pedestrians to stop all traffic on all corners?
It will be a signal button to let the signal know that you are there to use the crosswalk. The crosswalks in the town of Darien, the majority of them are what they call concurrent, which means you move with traffic. Yes.
Did the traffic studies on which this was based have a projected usage baked in for the two new developments that'll be right next door?
The question is, are the traffic studies, were they projected out?
Yep.
As part of the lot SIP application, you're required to project out 20 years or 20 or 30 years, I believe, into the future to look at traffic volume. So what we did was we ran the SIM model, which is the model for all the traffic, along with Federal's SIM model to manage that whole area to see what the impacts actually would be. And now we are going to time all 5 of those lights so that the traffic, not just now, but in the future, could be handled at those intersections. The projections, they made you increase it by 0.5% each year, if you will, for volume. So to answer your question, yes, it is. We did look out to the future. Yes.
Ted Hawkins, District 6. This is a welcome improvement to the intersection, clearly. But I had a question about the sidewalks, or sidewalk. Currently, on the eastern edge, there's a very nice concrete sidewalk in front of Allen O'Neill, and on the western side, going north, there's the start of a dinky macadam little sidewalk. What's the intention? Is the intention to have 2 sidewalks running up Norotan Avenue?
We will, this part of this project, we will take the sidewalk from the corner of West and Norotan on the west side and extend it all the way past those houses up to the firehouse.
To the firehouse?
That's
Good.
correct.
Good.
That's correct. And it will be concrete.
Better.
Anyone else? Thank you very much.
Don't go anywhere. Do you now have a quorum?
No.
Okay. We can, rather than breaking off at the end so we can expedite this,
Just vote now.
why don't we all vote now, just keep track of who's on who. So, Public Works is, you're the
Public
lead.
safety.
You're the lead, so you guys
Well,
go first.
We're really not lead on it, Public Works is, but
All
we'll
right,
go
so-
with this. But why don't we go ahead and vote public safety members, all in favor of?
Well,
No, we gotta be
unfortunately,
nominated.
what we have to do
Not a list.
is we have to move each one of the resolutions. So if you want, and if Wayne doesn't shoot me for doing this, can we have someone from Public Works move the easement for 1 Allen O'Neill?
I so move.
Oh, sorry, I said Public Works. Do you want to do Public Health and Safety?
Sure, okay. I do have a list somewhere.
Yeah, I have, I read them.
Okay. So I move the resolution for 1 Allen O'Neill. Do I have a second? Second.
Do I have all right, why don't you go through all four
Okay.
of yours?
Okay, so we're going to do them all?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I'll do.
I move 173 Norotan Avenue. Do I have a second? Okay, thank you. 179 Norotan. 180 Norotan. 185 Norotan. 187 Norotan. And 242 West Avenue. Okay, we're good.
Okay. For F&B, I'll yell out who did it for Allen O'Neill. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Stacy, Lisa, to the second. 173 Norotan,
Motion. Second.
179 Norotan.
Second. Motion.
Can we get it in order?
Motion. Second.
Thank you. 180 Norotan.
Motion. Second.
185 Norotan.
Motion. Second.
187 Norotan.
Motion. Second.
Just to confuse you, 242 West Avenue.
Motion. Second.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, do you want to just read off the list?
Can I have a motion for 1 Allen O'Neill from the Planning and Zoning and Housing? Okay, second? Okay. 173 Norotan? Motion? Carolyn, Mike. 179 Norotan?
So moved.
Okay. 180 Norotan? 185 Norotan?
So moved.
187 Norotan?
So moved.
And 242 West Avenue?
So moved.
So now we can vote on the whole thing together, but Public Health and Safety gets to vote first, so all yours.
All in favor of all these resolutions collectively? Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, well, good, thank you.
You lead us.
For F&B, all in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? It's unanimous.
For PZ&H, all approved? Okay. Any opposed? Any abstentions? It's unanimous.
Okay, the next thing on the joint meeting, and everybody's invited to stay, is the HVAC. So we are fortunate to have.
Jack, can I just interrupt?
Sure.
Planning, Zoning, and Housing is not reporting on this
That is
item.
correct, but you are more than welcome to stay and listen if you so desire.
To the extent that Planning, Zoning, and Housing would prefer to go to the back and finish our meeting with it, which requires an approval of our minutes and then is exited out in adjournment. Anybody interested in doing that? We're going to go to the back and finish off our meeting.
We were going to listen to Chief Anderson, so watch your cars when you're leaving now.
Yeah, well, I'm going to do this and then I'll bring him up.
All right, fine.
Thanks.
Okay, so I'm Mac Patrick, Chairman of Public Health and Safety, and we're the lead on the resolution for the police request for the replacement of the HVAC system. I thought I'd read the executive summary that came to us, which was quite helpful. At their February 24, 2020 meeting, the Board of Selectmen discussed the request for a special appropriation to fund major repairs to the police station HVAC system. The HVAC system has been problematic for some time and has affected department operations and required frequent calls for extensive repair service over the last 5+ years. In 2019, the town had a retro commissioning report done which identified issues with the system that needed correcting. Among the most significant are replacing one of the condensing units and replacing the building management system. The special appropriation will fund these significant items. After a discussion that included Chief Anderson, Director of Public Works Ed Gentile, and Facilities Supervisor Tony Campanello, the Board of Selectmen voted unanimously to request for a special appropriation of $233,429 to the Board of Finance, to the RTM for consideration and approval. So that's where we are. I'd like to bring up Chief Anderson to speak a little bit about this. We'll give you, 2 hours? No, thank you.
By the way, Chief Anderson has now had to give up several of his evenings to go and explain this exact same thing. And to talk about dedication to the chief, his wife has joined him in each one of those meetings.
Upstairs in the Board of Selectmen office, the lady said that I'm a cheap date. That's why my wife is with me. So she just likes to see how I operate, I guess, and how the town operates. But thank you, Don Anderson, for the police department, for the record. And I have given this presentation quite some times now, but so I'm getting to be old hat at it. Usually I'd be up here speaking about traffic issues and grants and crosswalks and tactile devices, but HVAC tonight is the topic on the agenda. In 2011, the police department underwent a substantial renovation and expansion, as most folks know. We went to about 40,000 square foot building. At that time, an HVAC system was installed in both the new section and the old section of the police department. Shortly after any warranty period expired, we started experiencing HVAC problems that are just not burr under the saddle. They're major issues. We have had officers eating their lunch in the break room in the middle of the winter with coats and hats on because it was only 40 degrees. Conversely, we have had officers basically in beach attire in the report room in the summer trying to get reports out. They have to take their shirts and ballistic vests off because we have temperatures in the 80s or low 90s in there when the HVAC system was just not functioning properly. The building management system that was installed in the building in 2011 into 2012, as it turned out, is a proprietary system that was on the verge of being sunsetted at that time. It only runs on a Windows 1997 version computer, and it's proprietary to the company that installed it. Since that time, most folks know we have hired Dave Sabini at DPW, who does a lot of the HVAC type work. This system, he can get into the system and look at it, but he can't make any changes when those changes need to be made. When they hired me in 1983, they hired me to walk the beat and give out parking tickets and direct traffic. And in the intervening time from 2013, when I got promoted to the administrative services captain, and until now, I have been on the roof with screwdrivers and wrenches trying my best to be an HVAC technician while holding a cell phone, trying to talk to a technician remotely to try to get some air movement in our building. So we have tried valiantly to nurse this system along. We have spent an inordinate amount of time and money trying to keep this system going. In simple terms, if this was a medical discussion, we would need a cardiologist and a neurologist. The brain of the system is not working right, and the condensing unit on the roof, which would be the heart of the system, is also just not working correctly. We hired a retro commissioning agent. We went for the best that we can find in the business to come in to give us a absolutely no holds barred. They don't have any dog in the fight to come in and tell us what we needed to do. And I think Ed and Tony can speak to this as they're the experts more on HVAC than I am. we have to have a new building management system, and we need a new condensing unit on the roof. Tony and Ed were able to work with Carrier, who makes this condensing unit, to give us a goodwill discount on this condensing unit on the roof. Part of the problem with it, though, was the building management system, the brain of the system, was telling this condensing unit to start and stop in what is it, 3 or 4-fold of what it should have been over the time frame. So it's telling it to, and that's why it kind of wore itself out. The automated logic system, the building management system that we're proposing to put in the building, is a open source, non-proprietary system that will allow our staff to go in and make changes when they need to make changes. So hopefully the chief or the administrative services captain, Bob Shredders, who took over for me and now kind of runs the building headaches, will not have to be there on a Friday night or a Sunday night. You know, being that we're the only 24/7 building, public safety building in the town of Darien, we're not asking for something that's just a little bit, uncomfortable to work in. We're basically asking for a fix that's going to be able to allow our staff to work 24/7. Especially we have prisoners in there. We're required to meet a certain standard in the building as well. Not that they're our first, but we are required to have a certain amount of air exchange, and that provides some reasonable, humane level of comfort in that building to our guests and our clients, as well as our staff.
I don't know if Ed or Tony, you want to add anything, but Tony, come on up. First, Tony, why don't you introduce yourself so that everybody knows who Tony is?
Hi, I'm Tony Campanella. I work for Adam, the supervisor of facilities and equipment at the town.
Correct me if I'm wrong. During the presentation to the Board of Selectmen, Kip Coons, who is one of the co-chairs of the Oxridge Building Committee, said the group that did this study is the same group that they've been working with for Oxridge. So they come very highly rated and very well respected. I just wanted to make sure everybody knew that. One of the questions that we did have was the system, the warranty. So how does the warranty work?
Okay, so on the rooftop unit, I believe it's a 5-year hold and a 1-year on the compressor. And these are all fairly standard in the industry. On the BMS, the kind of the brains of the operation, I believe it's just 1 year, but then we signed maintenance agreements. We signed a 5-year maintenance agreement, and the annual cost is, it's much better if you just sign year by year. So,
Tony, just a follow-up question, financial oriented. That is a longer warranty possibly offered here in this case? Because I gather from all the explanations that we've had so far about the experience being on the roof on the old unit, warranty protection is pretty important. And I think I heard 1-year warranty. I think in your previous explanation, one of the two. And did we ask whether there's another, maybe even a longer warranty? Did that come into effect and consideration?
in terms of the BMS, a maintenance agreement and the warranty are kind of the same thing because it's software. We're going to get updates. In terms of the condensing unit, I didn't ask, so I don't know the answer on that. 5 years for the unit, 1 year for the compressor is fairly standard. I believe with the new BMS system, the condensing unit will run just like any other condensing unit. Won't have the issues that we've been having. Basically, the condensing unit is 7 years old, but it has the amount of starts as a much, much, much older unit. And that's contributed highly to the issue.
I leave it up to your judgment, obviously, Tony. I'm just asking a financial question in terms of just, if you were offered a price with a 1-year warranty, given the fact the chief's been up on the roof and,
Right.
And we want to avoid that. We want to
Yeah.
have the satisfaction when we're getting a Loctite unit that's going to perform, the condenser.
We're going to look into
Just to
that.
ask the question, you make the determination whether the extended warranty, if it is available, is worth the bucks.
Great,
That's all.
thank you.
In the defense of Carrier, who made the unit, we have two, they're either virtually identical or identical units on the roof. The other one has not had any problem. So that goes to the Carrier's defense. They just say it was what the brains was telling it to do that caused this unit to wear out. And really what brought this to a head and why it's kind of an emergent, exigent circumstance for us. I mean, last summer, I think it was last summer, I was on the roof at 9 o'clock on a Friday night, and there was a technician there, and I was standing in front of the unit, and just by the grace of God, I stepped to the side, and he did something, and the thing exploded with shrapnel and metal and glass and plastic, and if I had been standing in front of the unit at the time, I might not be standing here today. So that's really when the full court press went on with Ed, and Ed and his folks have been instrumental in helping me along, because I didn't go to Apex Tech, and I'm not an HVAC technician, but I'm learning awful quick. We'd like to get a system where we can get back to doing our business, and we're not spending a lot of time on things like worrying about if it's 90 or 40 degrees in the police department building.
Mark Adeletta, District 5. The vendor on the compressor is Carrier, if I understand. The vendor for the BMS control system, is that a Carrier-supported product as well? It's software, I understand that, or is it a separate vendor?
It's they're actually both owned by United Technology, so it's not Carrier, but it's Automated Logics, who's owned by United Technologies. Yeah,
And the
as is Carrier.
Thank you. And the old system that was not
Separate.
functioning, same.
Yeah, separate. Yeah. It was not Automated Logics. It's a different,
Got it.
totally separate system.
Thank you.
May I ask a question? Sure. Do you know offhand what the operating system is that the building management system requires?
The new version?
It's a supported piece of software, where this other one is not supported. That's why we're stuck with this old computer. So, kind of standard, probably, I'm not sure, but probably Windows, I'm sure we'll get a new Windows 10 or whatever the latest.
Okay. The problem being that Windows is a proprietary software system. The building management system is an open source system. The open source system will be, probably never out of support. But Windows, as we've discovered, will be out of support, and it will be out of support in 5 years.
Right, but with the Automated Logics, as long as that's supported, we'll get the latest updates of the software, which will reflect the operating system.
The software, and I know people may make comments about what this building itself has, but that's for different reasons. It is the consistent software that we have in Town Hall. So the other advantage is it is software that the town is familiar with, that Public Works is familiar with, and the heating and cooling that we may have experienced at various times in this building is not a problem of the brain, so to say. There's other little mini fixes that have been going on to resolve those. Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
Not to belabor the point, but in the administrative area where the chief and the captains work, when the building was done in 2011, they installed very nice wall covering in that area, just to make it a little bit different than the rest of the building. Due to humidity issues, because of the HVAC, we had substantial mold growing behind that wall covering. It required a complete strip of everything in that administrative area, a remediation of the mold, a sealing of the walls, and then a repaint. And then we had to have a company, Hygienics, came in twice to do surface and air testing to ensure that we were within OSHA standards once this mold occurred. We also had a similar situation in the locker room where we had condensation coming out of vents and in the ceiling, getting into lockers where we had to throw away a substantial amount of uniforms and equipment because of mold occurring in there as well. So,
The last thing, if I might ask you to expand on, is there was some discussion with our current service provider, who I believe their contract is up.
We have a service and maintenance agreement with NCON, and I don't want to throw NCON under the bus, but I have to be candid and accurate. In the 6 years that I was the administrative services captain, they made an effort, but they never fixed the problem. They never gave us the path and trajectory that we needed to go on to solve the problem. I think the maintenance and service agreement was $24,000 a year. That's for belts and filters and cleaning, but it did not solve the problem. I believe, as I stand here today, we gave NCON more than ample opportunity to give us a fix and send us in the right direction. And at this point, I don't think that it would come to any surprise to NCON that we're looking to make a change, based on my conversations with them over the last 6 years.
A question for Ed. Assuming this passes on the 16th, and I see no reason why it would not, which means you can put in an order on the 17th, when would you expect, based upon everything, for it to be somewhat operational?
Well,
Or what is your goal for it?
the goal is to get the AC unit in as quickly as possible. I'd like to have it up and running the first week of May.
Which is part of the reason why we're doing this appropriation now, as opposed to waiting for a budget time.
And to be, as Don would say, about as candid as I can with you folks, as soon as we got through the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance, we notified Carrier that we were halfway home and to put us on a list to get a unit here. I haven't purchased anything, I didn't sign anything, but Carrier has been really good about working with us on this unit. They told us that once you get to the point where you feel comfortable, to let us know. Now, that doesn't mean you folks could deny the request, but it could happen, you don't know. They weren't going to charge us anything to restock it. So I felt it was prudent to get us on the list as soon as we possibly could, so that summertime wouldn't get here and we'd still be working up on the roof to get this unit changed.
I think that's a very prudent move, personally.
Thank you.
Question. How does the new maintenance contract cost-wise compare to the old $24,000 number?
There's going to be honest with you, we're not going to go back to NCON from what I just heard from Don. We're going to get some prices. We haven't gone and shopped that out just yet. We have until that unit gets up there. We have a couple places that we're going to look at to give us some prices to give us a service contract, if you will, for that unit, the units up on the roof. I feel it's time, like Don does, to move on to a new vendor. But we wanted to make sure we were getting the units in place. But we'll be looking at that over the next couple of weeks to get a contract and set. And hopefully, it'll be something that we can negotiate a little bit less than $24,000 a year. Okay. But it is, to be honest with you, for the work that they were doing, just the maintenance part of it, changing the belts, changing them, it is consistent with what we see in other buildings right now. But we'll look for a different vendor to give us a better price.
A general question towards buying in bulk, I guess I'd say it like that. Does the town look to buy things in bulk and software and things like that? Do we try to do that between the different properties that the town has?
Since I've been here, we've tried to, and where I have control, we've tried to be consistent in purchasing, whether it be supplies for buildings, DPW garage, the police department, trying to buy equipment and material that is consistent and in bulk, if you will. There's also opportunities to change over fuel sources. I've done that in every single one of the buildings. Software, it's kind of tricky with some of the stuff that goes on. The Mather Center has its own HVAC system over there, works perfectly fine. It was different than the one we had at Town Hall. When they did the addition, they decided not to turn it over. Right now, I pay about the same for both systems. So there really is no need. If it's not broke, I'm not going to try to fix it.
I have one question. Sure.
So the condenser unit that you're proposing to be replaced, normally what would be the lifespan of that unit? Assuming that the controls are operating properly.
Generally, they're in the 15-year range before you start putting money that you don't get
Okay,
back on. You know,
okay.
sometimes you can get longer out of them, but often you're.
Okay. So the unit that we have in now, which was operational in 2012,
Yeah.
we got 8 years service out of it, so to speak,
Yeah.
which is a little more than half of its normal life expectancy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if we buy a new condenser and control system, we should not have to visit this issue again for approximately another 15 years. Is that a fair assumption?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Our committee is ready to take action.
Just for the record, if you have to vote
Yeah,
on
you-
another unit of this type, it will be with another chief if it's 15 years from now. Just
And another F&B department.
No, Stacy will still be here.
Because she's 30.
Public health and safety, I move the resolution to replace the HVAC system. Do I have a second? Second. All in favor? Okay, it's good, it's unanimous. Okay, thank you.
Do I have a motion to move?
Second.
He didn't even finish.
We sit here.
That's typical. All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you very much. Now move on to the last and final before minutes.
This is the police gift. And again, I'm Mac Patrick, Chair of Public Health and Safety, and we're lead on this resolution as well. I'll also give a summary of what we're doing here. This is the gift of a laser shot judgment training simulator and FARO scanner. At the regular meeting of the Board of Selectmen held on Monday, February 24, 2020, the board discussed a proposed gift from the Darien Foundation. The Darien Foundation plans to give the town a laser shot judgment training simulator and a FARO scanner for use by the police department. The laser shot JTS will replace the current PRISM judgment shooting simulator. The PRISM system is outdated and no longer supported. The laser shot system will provide much more flexibility and broader training opportunities for the police department. The FARO laser scanner is a mapping tool that will aid the accident investigation team. It will also allow the police department to map our schools and other public buildings. This will enhance public safety, allow police to train for critical incident responses. After discussion, the board voted unanimously to approve the attached resolution, recommending the acceptance of these gifts valued at $109,000 and to the representative town meeting. Now I'll introduce Captain Robert Shredders, who will discuss it in a little more detail. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Captain Bob Shredders, for those who don't know me. We had the PRISM system approximately 7 years ago, and it provided us with much needed training, extra training than typically you get in other police departments. For those of you who watch the news, just about every night you see some type of situation where law enforcement is involved in some type of deadly force shooting. I've been involved in firearms training and training in the department. I spent 5 years in the training division working closely with the firearms instructors. And when you go to these use of force classes, when you're in that training environment, you quickly learn that judgment shooting, a decision when to use or when not to use deadly force, is actually much more important than the basic fundamentals of just marksmanship. That's where law enforcement gets into trouble, making the wrong decision in that critical moment. These simulators, as with our previous PRISM system, allows officers to train in an environment which puts them under stress, and in training we like to create stress to inoculate that officer with stress, just like we inoculate our children against diseases. So the thought is, when an officer is presented with a stressful situation in the real world, instead of his blood pressure and his heart rate going up here, it'll just go to here, because he's used to being under that type of stress. So it allows him to react better, think maybe a little clearer, and make a better judgment, which would obviously have a better result for the suspect or a citizen or the officer himself. So it's an invaluable piece of equipment. The Faro system, for those who don't know what that is, basically it almost looks like it's like a rectangle, looks like a video camera almost, and you put it on a tripod, and you turn it on, you let it go, and it takes a 3D image. Like if we were to place it in multiple points in this auditorium, it would take a 3D image of this whole auditorium, and then you plug it into a computer. And just like if you go on a real estate website and you can tour a home virtually, three-dimensionally throughout the home and see the different rooms, the bathrooms, the bedrooms of the house, you can do that with this Faro scanner at an accident scene or inside a building. So if there is a fatal accident or a serious injury accident in town, the accident investigation team can place this Faro scanner in different locations, and they can three-dimensionally map the scene. So when it comes time to go to court, if there's civil litigation, they have it right there for the jury, for the judge, for the attorneys, and they can really see a bird's eye view of that scene, and it aids in the investigation. Back in the old days, when the chief started and I started a little bit after him, we were out there with tape measures, and it was very rudimentary. And then we had other type of laser technology where it would take the measurements for you, and this is just the next evolution of that. It's state of the art. Admittedly, I didn't know too much about it. I'm not involved in the accident investigation team. Lieutenant Hudema, who she replaced me in the training division, she took the initiative to go to the Darien Foundation, whom we're very grateful to for this grant. She sought out the grant for laser shot in Faro. She's on the accident investigation team and provided the presentation with a rep from Faro. It was very impressive when you see the work that the unit can do, not just for accident scenes, but also we can use it to map the town hall, the library, the schools, and plan, critical responses, for worst case scenarios. So it would be a really a good aid to us, not something that just the accident team can use, but the Detective Bureau can also use it for crime scenes. Like I spoke about, we can use it for critical incident planning. So both of these systems would greatly aid the police department. And like I said, we're very grateful to the Darien Foundation for giving us this money, this grant money. And I'm happy to answer any questions about the laser shot. If someone had, the thing with laser shot, it not only offers shoot, don't shoot scenarios, but it also allows us to, basically the PRISM system would show a scenario on the screen, and the officer could choose to shoot or don't shoot, right? With laser shot, it's much more involved. You can have one scenario have 8 or 10 different outcomes where it's not just shoot or don't shoot. The officer could choose to go to something less lethal like a taser, a baton, pepper spray, de-escalation, verbal commands, and the instructor is actually there with a tablet, and based on the actions of the officer, he can change the scenario. So the officer, it's very dynamic. The officer is going to have to think on his feet. He's never going to know which direction the scenario is going to go in. So it's much more dynamic than the PRISM system. So just the PRISM system, one of the issues we have with it is that there's no more scenarios available. The company has, I don't want to say folded, but they're not active anymore. It's unsupported. The software is unsupported. For us to make our own scenarios, it would be cost prohibitive. It'd be very expensive, and it wouldn't be up to the standard, I think, that would be beneficial to the officers.
Good evening. I'm Peter Fanos from District 6, and I don't really have a question. I just wanted to have a comment for my RTM colleagues. Generally, I maintain sort of a low profile on a number of these things, but I wanted to affirm the support for this gift. I have personal experience in this type of training. I've not had the pleasure or experience of training under this exact simulator, but I can tell you that, tell everyone here that this type of training is essential to provide optimal training for law enforcement. It optimizes judgment decision-making. It's absolutely critical to give our officers the best type of training to handle these type of situations. I'm grateful for the Darien Foundation for making this gift, and that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
I want to go to Farrell because you When you discuss the Pharaoh, just so you don't yell at me. When you discuss the Pharaoh, one of the things that I found to be quite unique, and please understand for those who have not gone to active shooter training that was offered earlier, they're coming back to try and do it again for the RTM members. But by having and being able to map each of our buildings, including our schools, would allow, should anything nefarious happen, to have a complete layout in 3D, if I'm not mistaken, of what's going on. And so it's a tremendous tool based upon what, as a security measure for the town as a whole. So, and without question, since the police department does do the security review of the schools on an annual basis, if I'm not mistaken, this is something that they will be working with the Board of Ed on. So there's no need to say, are you telling the Board of Ed? They will already know about it.
So for pre-planning, like I said, it's invaluable. Instead of bringing 51 officers of the Darien Police Department up to the high school or to the town hall or to the middle school, you can map those buildings, bring it into one classroom, and virtually go through the school and talk about entry areas, staging areas, areas of egress, and it's really phenomenal. It's state of the art. So.
Are there any other questions? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I just had a question about, because I think you discussed it at the selectmen meeting, but the ongoing expenses, after the system is purchased.
Sure. So the grant for the grant for Faro, it includes a 3-year maintenance contract for the software and the licensing. So going forward, after the first 4 years, the costs we would have to incur if we decided to continue with that, the software updates, which aren't mandatory. I guess we'd have to take a look at that time and see how we've been using it and if there's been any advancements or updates, and then we can make a decision then if we're going to put it in the budget to go with another 3 years of updates. I don't know who has this handout, but they offer 1 and 3 year maintenance contracts, so it looks as a cost savings, the 3-year plans are a little bit better. So I think when I map this out, it's for another 3 years, it's a little over $5,200. So that'd be we first place that in a budget 4 years out from now. So for the first 4 years, there'd be no extra costs to be incurred. As far as the laser shot, another thing I didn't mention is our PRISM system is a live fire system. This laser shot system is a live fire system, but it also has a laser component to it. So we can not only use it in our indoor range with live fire ammunition, we can also take the system out, place it in our training room, and do exercises in there where it's a little more dynamic. Officers can move around a little bit more like they would in the real world, and they're not limited to an area of space in the indoor range. So there's a lot more options, a lot more versatility. It's a lot more, obviously, mobile. So for the costs heading out for the system, it comes with almost 900 scenarios. I don't think in the 7 years that we had the PRISM system, if we used it twice a year, we put an officer through maybe 6 scenarios at a time. So we used maybe 12 to 15 scenarios a year. So it costs about between $500 to $900 to purchase 25 new scenarios. I can't see for the first 5 to 7 years we'd even need any other type of scenarios from this company. So there'd be no cost for that. It would just be batteries for the controllers, a light bulb for the projector if a light bulb was to go out. And if we do the laser option, they have the system comes with facsimile firearms, which are powered by CO2 to move the action of the fake firearm. So it'd be the cost of a CO tank and refills. So a tank is approximately $150, and then the refills are about $26. But again, I couldn't see us if we did the laser option, we'd be only doing that probably once a year. So the cost going out in the budget would be relatively low, if not non-existent, aside from maybe a bulb in the batteries.
I'd like to make one other comment. Peter and I had a conversation earlier today, and we were joking that both of us started to drive sticks. And still to this day, when I'm driving an automatic, my left foot is going and my hand's on the automatic because that's just the way I've always driven. These scenario trainings are exactly that. The more people go and have this type of experience, when they do potentially have something, it's not new to them and their mind knows how to react. And that's why having something that's even up to date is really so essential, even if they only get through 400 of the 800 scenarios. It's really a training of the mind, and it just makes our town and our police officers safer. So
you can see how one of these shootings that goes wrong can just the effect it has on the community and the families. It could be devastating. So that's what all of law enforcement hopes to avoid, and that's what we hope to avoid. And even in this community, we're on the Route 1 I-95 corridor. There's anything could happen at any time, so it's better to be prepared and have it and not need it, and to need it and not have it. So again, I appreciate the gift from the foundation, and I hope you approve it. Yes, ma'am.
My question just has to do with...
Please go to the microphone.
Very short. Iris Mix. My question is that the two things that each of these are replacing, they lasted about 7 years apiece. Is that what I'm hearing?
The total station, to be honest, the total station, I'm a little out of the loop. I think they've had it for about at least 5 to 7 years. They're having just, it's not just software issues, but hasn't been a reliable system.
Well, I guess what I'm trying to say is that if these new systems, which I'm sure y'all have researched and are getting the latest and greatest, would it be more likely that we would be replacing them after 5 to 7 years, given the technology change and stuff, versus all this discussion of the maintenance cost after 5 or 6 years? So, which is fine. I'm curious as to what your thoughts on are.
As far as laser shot, the chief and I were at a conference in Phoenix, and that's how we first discovered this company. The company is very active in law enforcement. They're used quite a bit. Actually, one of their biggest contracts is with FLETC down. It's the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center. So they're used by a lot of police departments, like big name departments, sheriff's departments, federal agencies. So this company is always going to be around. That's a problem we have with prison, is that they disappear.
Okay, that's kind of where I was headed.
Right, so this is going to be a supported system.
Your confidence level in the...
Right, like I said, I can't envision us going through 800 scenarios, and the first 5 years, I don't even think we'll need anything. It'll be able to run on its own.
Technology is going so...
Yeah, it's...
7 years from now, we may be holograms.
These will definitely...
You may be a hologram.
I think we'll get many years of use, especially with laser shot. And as far as the Faro system, what I saw from the salesman who gave the presentation at the Darien Library, I don't know if anyone was here for that, but it seemed that it's a fully supported system. That didn't seem to be the case with Total Station, with the problems they had. So I can see there being a little bit more longevity to these two different products.
Just out of curiosity, how long does a scenario take to play out? Like how many minutes?
No, it's a good question. It depends what type of scenario. The scenarios run from a traffic stop to like a disturbance, a domestic violence call. So it could be a 2-minute scenario, or a quick, you got to make a decision in 10 seconds. It's start to finish. It's over. So it all depends on what you're trying to, all the different things you can think of that happen in real life. There's also active shooter scenarios, which even the PRISM system had, which would go a little longer because you're going through, buildings and searching, and so there's a lot of different. But one good thing with the laser option is we can bring in RTM members and put you through the training if you wanted to see it for yourself and see what it's like. And you find yourself diving behind chairs and
The only thing I would like to ask, Captain Shredders, obviously, with Lieutenant Adela did their homework on this. They did excellent work on bringing this forward. Not only do I want to thank the Darien Foundation, I want to thank the whole town of Darien. The boards and commissions are always in support of training for the Darien Police Department. I believe that we offer the best training of any police department in the state, and I believe you folks glean the expertise and the quality of our police officers based on that training. So I'm very appreciative, as I have been my entire career, over the level of training that we get. We get best practice training pretty much from experts from across the country. We don't skimp on training, and I think it shows.
You can start.
Well, thank you. One thing that I remember hearing at the selectmen meeting was the selectmen were prepared to put this in the budget. They were very supportive of it, and then when the option of a gift came up, it was very nice. So it's not in the budget, but it's it's being treated as a gift.
I think that's a very important thing. The selectmen this wasn't that they were waiting for the gift to happen. This was coming, and we were just fortunate that the foundation happened to fund it.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't we do the vote? You guys are here.
Yeah, thank you. So I move the resolution to accept the gift for the police department. Do I have a second? Thank you. All in favor? Okay, thank you.
Do I even have to mention it? All in favor? Thanks. F&B, can you please stay, because we have 2 minutes to approve, so we can get them off the agenda. Thank you all for staying here and being part of this. I really do appreciate that all the committees came together. What minutes do we have outstanding?
February 6th.
And the October one?
In the appropriate.
Do you have copies of it?
Not here. So can we have F&B.
Tom?
We have 2 minutes to vote on. The February 6th and an October meeting that we had with Park and
That's
Rec.
right, October 21st.
On October 21st.
Yep.
And even if you weren't here, you can still vote on it. So do I have a motion?
Well, thank you for coming.
Okay, we'll have Iris do the second.
I just thought I'd give you a little difference
I thank you.
You move?
For the,
I second.
for the February meeting, all in favor? All right, that's unanimous. For the October 21st meeting, do I have a move?
Peter?
I'm doing Iris first. Stacy, you can get a second in there. All in favor?
It's like we were early with that.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion. Second.
Done.
Record for F&B.
Not allowed to. Excellent. Thank you very much.